Hi guys, today we have Gurpreet and Vijay Soni here. I requested them to give some competition tips. Let's go and ask some questions to them. Hi Vijay and Gurpreet, thank you for coming and thank you for willing to share some of your knowledge on competition tips. Vijay, to start with, how do you prepare previous evening of the next day's task?
And checking all equipment like the battery level and the memory and clearing all the stuff, checking your brake speed bar lines, and whatever small patchwork or repairing you have to do it before.
Gurpreet?
Um, in checking instruments, I want to add that for new pilots, it's very important that now most of the instruments they give you option of choosing your own layout, and it's very important you give it a lot of thought of what the layout should be, and then have a feedback loop. If during flight you realize like, oh, in transition I needed this information, like I needed glide ratio, or I still needed altitude over goal, right? So you add that. You pay attention to the size of the column. If you, like me, you have eyesight problem, the important ones have to be bigger. So that means you can have more pages, but you don't put too many things on one page. So layout is very important nowadays. Flymaster, most of the devices nowadays, even XC Track on your phone, it gives you option of choosing your layout. So pay very good attention, take some advice if you're very new. Then after you set it and you fly, customize it. Like you can almost do it every day if you like it, but don't change anything major. Only slowly add or subtract or make the columns bigger as your need was during the flight. And generally what is suggested is that you split it into three parts. The page you need for start cylinder flying, the page you need for transitions flying, and the page you need for goal, right? But then I've seen some overlaps also, that while you are still in the start cylinder, you might want to think a little bit about the first turn point also, that where am I going next after the start opens up. And then when you are doing the race, then maybe sometime I've seen that we reach altitude to goal already on the second last turn point. Okay, we have flown 20 kilometer plus 22 kilometers is the longest glide I did to goal once. So it could be you don't need to wait to get the to goal altitude to goal your racing to start at the last turn point only. You can start way before also. So that's one. Equipment is another, particularly speed bar settings. You might need to change them, and you might need to change the speed bar also. That's the most wearing out line on your setup. And of course, you pay attention to weather details. But like we discussed, it's better to not form negative opinions. If go in details, try to study as much as you can and figure out how you're going to fly next day a little bit, but leave things open for a change also, particularly if it looks negative. If it looks like non-flyable day, try not to make an opinion until it's like very very sure. Don't start partying till the organizer has cancelled the day, right? It's not a good idea to relax before, because things change sometimes, and sometimes tasks are held in very difficult situation, the situation in which you normally wouldn't fly, between showers or something like that. So it's better not to form opinion. Leave yourself open and positive that there will be tasks somehow. So when you're looking at weather, don't look like when you're doing XC, you look like if there's even a small window, they might hold a competition because they need a task. So you look at it in that way and leave yourself still open to a change and stay positive about the task.
Competition events are also opportunity to party with friends, and how do you balance between partying and resting hours?
For me, it's easy. I'm not much of a party animal. But mostly in competition, people who are serious about competition, they don't party much, right? And as anything else, you're defined by the company you keep. And I didn't have any problem. I think I don't. I'm not such a party thing.
If it's a big competition like a world championship or world PWC, So all the pilots are serious. They don't party much. But when you have some category 2 competitions, they are mixed crowd. Some people are party, they just come for the party. So you have to particular avoid this crowd and not to party at night if you are serious pilot.
Okay, next question. Arriving on the takeoff, just before the task brief, what is all that, how do you spend your time in preparing?
It's about your, yeah, like some people take more time for preparation and some people take less time for preparation. So it's your choice. Means normally I take more time for preparation and I like to be comfortable with the surrounding. So I open my wing, I check each and every line and put everything in the place, water bottle and everything. Recheck my speed bar, everything, and I stay for the briefing.
Okay.
What I do is I check my equipment very thoroughly when I'm packing up the day before. And if I had this opportunity, sometime rain comes and then it's different story. Then you have to pack quickly and then of course you have to check next day. But normally if I have packed properly, then I leave the glider in the sleeve only in the concertina, and I open up my harness and put the glider bag into the harness, put the water bottle at the right place, get everything ready that I just have to attach the instruments and that part is ready. And the last minute I'll open the concertina and put it into the harness and fly. So I take my instruments, I generally sit around the briefing area or wherever I can. I generally, because of my personal preferences, avoid sitting in the sun until it's very cold or something. And try to stay as, don't even think too much, as open and empty.
Okay.
So you're ready to. Why I do this is there's a history to that, is that in my competition progression, despite being a techie person, I made error with instruments a lot, not in using them but in feeding them. So there's something in my nature, maybe I get a little flustered. And these mistakes generally happened when I was meet director, assistant meet director, and involved with organizing also. There was one incident where I myself changed the task, briefed everybody. People put the new task in the GPS and I forgot to put it in my. So I flew the old task and realized halfway that I made a mistake already.
Yeah.
So I try to focus on that part more and sort out my equipment the day earlier. So it's like a loop. But yes, recommended is that you check your equipment again on the takeoff.
Okay.
I am a not tech guy, but till now I have not done the mistake with the instrument. Normally this is the basic mistake do all the newcomers. Some silly mistake like they put a wrong start time, they put wrong turn point. Why I am not doing mistake is the main thing is I am following the basics, like even though we have the high tech instrument nowadays, still I put a tape and write all the weapon by hand.
Yeah.
It must be looking silly to other pilot, but I'm double sure that what I have to do.
Yeah. Task briefing, sir. What do you focus on?
Besides being very careful with putting the waypoints, I particularly pay attention to any changes in the task, that's where the mistake happens. So when there's any change in the task, then you have to be double sure. And normally we have multiple instruments nowadays, so it does get little hectic. And it's good if you have a team now, like XC-Track lets you QR scan the task. So you should share some workload with one guy doing the instrument and other guys QR copying it, so that you have more time to brief your feed your other instruments. So I really suggest that we work as a team, particularly when Indian pilots go abroad, and kind of reduce the workload during the briefing, so we can focus on the briefing itself. When you are listening to briefing, pay a lot of attention, even if you know the route, even if you know the place, because it tells you a lot. Tone of the generally the guy who's doing the task briefing is guy who knows the area pretty well. He has flown there many hours, so his tone, He'll give you some clues which he expects to be the difficult parts, which he expects to be the easy parts. Where are we going to go? Headwind, where it's crosswind or tailwind. Pay attention to the weather briefing with respect to the task. How weather is going to change at what part of the day, and if it's advantageous to be flying higher at that time and flying lower at that time, stuff like that. And other is to kind of have some kind of reverse engineering of the task also. The task committee has generally put a lot of thought and they have detailed weather report with them, and generally some insight also into the weather report from the local organizer. So how they have put the task, like how big it is, how big are the transition, tells you what they think about the day also. It's not just the weather briefing and not just their words, it's also how they, so you can make some opinions about how you're going to fly it also. Besides that, again, everything should be left with the room of openness at the end. That don't make such a fixed plan. Of course, the highway, like we're going to discuss, where the Gaggle is going is also going to be a major factor in flying the race as such. Because sometimes even the most optimal route is not optimal anymore because the Gaggle went the other way, and flying with Gaggle is more optimal than flying alone. But it's a delicate balance.
We'll discuss about that in detail.
We're coming to that.
Okay. Takeoff window, where do you place yourself? Beginning, middle, or end?
Beginning. Before the moment the window opens, I like to take off. Because see, it's like when wind is less or not a good condition, you need more time to be in the air and need more time to go on a proper position for the start. Even if the wind is strong, we have to go and get used to that rough condition and be on the proper position. Normally what happens when you go in the beginning, all the good pilots launch immediately. And if you wait for longer time, then all the nervous crowd comes and they do the failure takeoffs, which makes you more nervous, which affect your flying.
Yeah.
Theoretically, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
But I'll share my experience. I have problem with my shoulder, so I have to save the number of hours I have for flying that I'm comfortable with. So what I do is I need to calculate the day a little better. If I think that we're going to climb a lot after takeoff and through multiple inversions or one inversion at least, and it's going to be difficult climb, then I launch early. If I see it's a straightforward climb to the cloud base is not very far away, then I save myself and I wait till I have just enough to climb and maybe 15 minutes more. Of course, I keep a leeway for how big the queue is and how long it will take to get to my place on the takeoff actually through the queue. So don't leave it too late also. You might think like, okay, I will cut it very fine and go now, and then you realize that there are people stuck in queue who are not launching, and then you're delayed, right? Okay. So that also happens. So keep little leeway and do this only if you have problem. Like I am like old instrument with a low battery. I don't last very long, so I have to save this battery for actual task.
But that is right now. What you used to do 10 years back?
Earliest.
Okay.
Earliest. That was Xavier gave us that first lesson was that launch early, guys, launch early. So we kind of followed it very rigorously.
Once you took off and before the start window, what is all that you observe and what do you try to do?
Follow the best highway, catch the strongest Gaggle which is climbing higher, and close to the exit point towards the first turn point.
Can you repeat that? Close to the?
Close to the exit point towards the first turn point. Try to be there.
Okay.
The two things where I'm going into finer into, generally speaking, that's a rule. You get high and you stay closer to the nearest exit point from the cylinder, or entry point, depending on exit or enter cylinder. What you need to do is there's question of gaggle and traffic also. When it gets to like all 120 out of 100 pilots are up there, it's quite crowded. Either you should fly totally with them or totally away. Half in and half out is dangerous for you and dangerous for them also. Either be part of the gaggle, be in the highway and totally be in, or be totally out and find something new and different. In places which are not like billing, which are little valley, flatland flying, there can be multiple options also. You can go more upwind and wait, particularly if it's anti-cylinder. You can go upwind and come downwind with the wind. It's generally going to be windy in the flatlands. And though it's not the nearest point, it might still give you better time. So you can do some calculations there also. So it depends so much on the situation you can analyze. But generally, the one basic thing is either be totally part of the gaggle or find your own thing.
Okay, here I have one question to interfere. Generally, before the start window, you have 2-3 gaggles. So which one to follow? Do you follow the highest gaggle, or do you follow some of the pilots you identify and stick to them?
Me personally, I'm not very good at identifying the pilots. So, and I'm quite confident about my climbing abilities. So generally, I'm the leader in this normally, that if I launched early, I will be establishing the best climb rates normally. So I'm very confident with that part of it. Climbing and figuring out where the best climb is going to be, I don't follow people. I tend to make my own opinion or lead even. So first climbs I'm pretty good with. So I don't feel a problem there.
For me, I will go with the gaggle, which is the climbing faster and higher. I follow the gaggle. I don't follow particular pilot, but I see particular mass of the air which is going up higher, faster. And when the window is, when the race start, that time I don't wait to climb the topmost. Wherever I am, I try to push myself going towards the first turn point.
Okay.
That question was to come.
Any tips on the first few seconds of the start window?
I think let's go few seconds before the start window is where it's crucial. At that point, many things can be happening. Let's say even starts 5 minutes before the start. That's very crucial time. Sometimes you lose the thermal 5 minutes before the start. Now with 5 minutes left, it's very crucial. What do I do now? Should I stick around here or shall I go search for new thermal? Because if you go searching, you will lose more altitude.
Yeah.
Right. Generally, I found that this close to window start, then stay in the least sinky air near the best exit cylinder and wait it out until it's like huge sink, or if you see clearly somebody marking a lift around, that is different story. But if everybody is sinking, try to minimize the sink, stay close. Okay. Then keep an eye on your time to start. That's something the instrument gives. Not just the start time, but time to start from where you are. Because from where you are to start gate might also take some time. So you need to have that setting in your instrument. That what do you call them? The small widgets. Yeah, speed to start, but there's blocks.
Yeah, widgets.
Widgets, yeah. So you need to have that widget in your start page. The time to start, not the start time, but time to start from where you are to start heading out. So it calculates your flying time to the exit also, so or entry to the gate.
Yeah.
So you need to pay attention to that also. Because the scoring softwares give you lead points. So this is also an important point to note, that even if you start with slight height disadvantage, but you slide at good time, you have certain advantage. So small plus minus there, even 20% altitude difference can be compensated later. Don't delay to get high at that time if you can. If you are phenomenally low and you had a bad start, then let the start happen, then gain height and then follow.
Okay.
But if you are a little bit lower, then don't waste time. Take the start in the best time possible.
Okay.
Right? We concur.
So, climb and the transit. How much do you climb and when do you exit to the next transit?
To the top.
It depends where you are. Actually, if you are in first gaggle, you try to stay with the gaggle in the initial. Means we don't leave the gaggle unless the thermal is over or somebody is like marking some climb ahead of us. Then only we leave the thermal and go for the next. Otherwise, we stay with the highway.
So, even if you are on the top of the gaggle.
Yeah, even if we are on top of a gaggle, and if we don't have a proper marking of the next thermal, or then we don't leave. We try to stay together.
But generally, I see you leading a lot. So, how do you make a decision there?
That time, see, we are not only flying the gaggle, we are also flying with the vision like some other free flyers, some free pilots, or some birds are flying around.
Okay.
So we keep eye on them, and they are marking a strong lift. Then we dare to leave and go further.
So, you look for some identification, some reference.
Yes.
Not just because you have a lot of height, you just leave.
No, we don't leave just for that.
Okay, now we are just 2 turn points away from the finished cylinder. And what is the flying style now?
It all depend which is your position and what is the day is working like. If it is lifty day, you just keep going, and how far you are from the goal. Do you need to climb more higher or no? If I say we are 20 kilometers away from the goal, and if the weather is lifty and we are leading, we just keep going with the trim speed and some bar, keep going. And if you are in the second or third gaggle and you see the pilot in front, what they are doing, from that you can make out should you gain more higher about the what you call it, height above the goal.
Yeah.
Some 200-300 meter altitude above the goal, and push the bar and go towards the goal.
So, if you are low height, then look for reference. Otherwise, if you are sufficient, then just
They
go
keep
for
going, yeah, on full bar.
Gurpreet.
Second last turn point or around that point is when you should already be also looking at the altitude above goal. That's number one thing, that sometimes because we can reach altitude above goal even at that place. So don't leave that field to be observed only after the last turn point. It should be there on your transition page also. If you're reaching even like say very far, zero altitude above goal, like you have even glide to goal very far away, then there's good chance that you can already push. Because if let's say it's 20 or 20 some kilometers, and the good chance that whatever extra sink you might meet on the way might be countered by some lift also. It will average out. So, and also plus in 20 kilometers you will meet lift somewhere unless you're very sure with the terrain that there's not much after this.
This we are talking about 2 turn points before.
Yeah,
so
can
we are
happen.
yet to speak about last leg rush.
No, it's not about last leg rush, but from here also you can sometimes reach a situation where it's one glide over the turn points still. If not, then you are still trying to now focus more on covering distance than just staying high. Because last glide you should be able to use the whole altitude, not just to the best thermal base, but all the way to the ground. So you have some spare altitude for the last, but so already your emphasis shifts now towards covering ground and finishing the task rather than just doing it at the highest possible altitude. By this time the gaggles also stagger out. So there are more markers around unless you're in the lead. If you're in the lead, then you're watching how much advantage I have. Like there was one point in Bulgaria when I was in lead, and I thought I had a lot of advantage, so I want to be sure. So like Vijay was saying, I was trying to go to like a couple of 100 meters above the 0-0 glide, and suddenly saw Hungarian pilots attacking under me, which I'd failed to observe somehow. They were lower than me and they already decided to go. And fortunately, I saw it fraction of a second before they actually overtook me. So I wasted, like, I could have reached goal that day with 5-minute lead, but I reached only with 2-minute or 1 minute something lead because I relaxed in the lead point. So you're still racing. Even if you're in the lead, you're still racing because you sometimes you fail to observe somebody who's attacking under you. You don't expect people to attack from under you, and people do. Actually, sometimes when you are at disadvantage, it's better to attack.
This is even 2 turn points before.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we are going for the top gear, last leg. Rush, explain a bit in detail.
Stay higher above the goal around 300 meter and go on full bar.
Okay.
That is the first thing.
Okay.
Because if you're lower, sometimes what happens, see, and there's a particular line. If you just go through that line,
Yeah.
then you get sing. And you are just above that line, you always get a lift.
Altitude was like.
Altitude wise, yeah.
You're just trying to say that keep some buffer.
Keep some further buffer. And it is always good to keep more height and go on full bar.
Okay.
Yeah, for beginning or even for a whole task, I mean, for any level of pilot, it's better to come up with 300 meters extra on the goal than land 30 meters short, right? So it's always advantageous to keep that. But at the same time, you're competing. So you have to watch carefully what's the line in front of you. And from your experience, whether that line is lifty or sinky. And like Vijay said, there is sometimes a particular altitude that if you go below that, you tend to meet more sink. But if you're above that, you stay floaty. So it's local, depending on what. But that's again, first, the start part is very psychological. The last is also very psychological. People can put pressure on you to make mistake. If you're in lead particularly, they will attack so that you make mistake. Now it's up to you to calculate. But on other hand, I have sometimes regretted also. Like in Asian Championship in Japan, I was winning the task. There were a couple of Japanese pilots with me, and then Debu also. Just like we were coming in very low, and we were following a river and a wall of mountain on one side, and the wall turned a bit. So when we were here, it wasn't lifty, and just at the edge I met a thermal, and I was in the lead, and we were very low. The waypoint was the goal was looking at about this angle, and I thought like, okay, let me take just 2 turns. But these Japanese pilots, they continued, right, and Debu followed them.
Okay.
And then I just took 2 turns and followed them. And I realized moment the wall turned, it was all lifty after that.
Oh.
Right? So sometimes, particularly when you're in the top part, anyway, you could be in your gaggle and competing with them. You don't need to compete with the top gaggle, but you're always competing for some place, right? That's the essence of competitions.
Yeah.
So it's a fine calculation and a lot of psychology in it. If I was second, I will do the same thing the Japanese pilots will be doing. I would have been pressuring them to make a mistake or something. And actually, if you look at that gaggle, in that psychological sense, Debu was in the most advantageous position because he was 4th, but not so far away. If he put pressure on us and any of us, like I did falter and I did extra turns, he was in an advantageous position to gain from the experience of first 3. So sometimes following at that stage is also advantageous, but there's seldom that you can catch up until the first one makes a mistake. So a lot of catching up is waiting for the guy in lead to make a mistake also and not to make the same one yourself. But then you have example in front of you, so that is the sense of catching up actually.
Climb and the transit. When are you going to make the decision further to climb or to leave?
In the beginning of the task, it's actually mostly it's going to the top of the thermal and leaving. But there is also a concept about the control group, how to fly with the gaggle, not just about like flying cross country, how to take advantage of the gaggle, which part of the gaggle can you take advantage of. So that's something I'll need a board to describe on.
Yeah,
So
sure.
shall we do that?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, cool. Gaggle, there's something, a concept of control group. Let's say that there was some thermal here and we all climbed up here. There's a gaggle, there are many pilots. Let's say this is you, okay?
Okay.
So obviously anybody above you is not in your control group, right? And also not everybody indefinitely under you is in your control group. There is a cone. Let's say if you're going to fly a little bit against the wind, assuming it's a differential equation depending on the wind and depending on your speed to fly. But assuming that we're still in the gaggle, we're not speeding and wind is moderate, then let's assume to be safe about 30 degrees.
Okay.
This is your control group. Anybody outside this cone, he is not in your control group.
Okay.
It's not good to follow him because when you reach here, you'll be below him.
All right.
Right? So this is your control group. These guys are out. Okay. So them you can use as markers, an advantage to optimize yourself. Right? So when you're going from start cylinder towards first waypoint, if you're in advantageous position, keep it here. Keep yourself above your control group. Okay, and race towards the goal, or toward the first waypoint, right? Let's say that these people leave and you become gaggle number 2. They have gone ahead and this is now 2. The gaggle has split and this has become the gaggle 1.
Okay.
So what you can do is you can keep yourself higher in this group and watch for people who fall out of first group and get below your control group.
Okay.
Now let's say a couple of pilots fell out of the first gaggle and you are also racing. Stay here, stay patient. It takes more patience to catch up now. But moment you see somebody is within your control group and ahead of you, marking a lift particularly, or they're good pilots, they will definitely find there's enough margin. Don't take it if they're very close to the ground, but if there's enough margin, race and catch up with them.
Okay.
Okay. Now you are in what we call 1.5. Okay. You are approximately in same position, but you have your own group. Now this is your control group. This ones you still can't catch. Okay. So you wait for like this or wait for them to make mistake, and that's how you do your catching up. So most of the decisions are based on this actually.
Okay.
So this is the best mathematical. Not that I learned this way. This was actually, I saw a video of a coach of the French junior team explaining it. He had a nice differential equation, which we can go into. But I think about 30 degrees for most of like up to 10 kilometers headwind works fine for moderate speeds of flying. Right? When you're full on racing and still want to calculate control group, then you need change your formula a little bit, the angle to a little bit more.
Okay.
But for most of the climb and fly, climb and fly, this is a good decision to fly, at least in the beginning, and then you can make finer decisions based on. So this is the basic catching up.
So in short, what I understand here is always have a reference, right?
Yeah.
Because if the first gaggle people have lost some
No,
of
this
them.
is about gaggle flying. This is when you have the option of having the reference. Sometimes you might have to fly totally alone also,
Yeah.
right? But this is when how best you can take advantage of the gaggle.
Yeah.
Right, about the markers. If you're left in a position, see, all the information that we have discussed is assuming you're already a good cross-country pilot.
Yeah.
We're not teaching you how to be a good
Yeah.
cross-country pilot. We're assuming that you know the cross-country skills. If need be, you can fly alone also. That catching up is quite different. For that, that's an entirely different story. But this is how to use the gaggle. You still have a lot of pilots around you, how to use them, right? So because even in the first group, there will be people who are not really fully there. They're just followers, and they will drop out. And you can take, they're flying good wings, they will flying Enzos, but skill-wise, they're not among the top 5.
Yeah.
And sooner or later, they will drop. They will be gaggle of 50, then will stay down to 30, then will stay down to 20, and then there's only 5 racing to goal. So you can advantage of this dropping out. So even if you started with a slight disadvantage, you are not on the top ones. You can still do a lot of catching up.
Got it. ESS to finish line or finish cylinder, is that just a glide or anything to be taken care seriously?
Main thing, don't follow the physical marking, follow the GPS.
Okay.
Because sometimes physical marking is not at the exact location of the GPS, and if you are low and you just make it, you might miss the crossing the line and you end up not doing the goal.
Okay.
Totally agree. Only other point is that you also need to understand how the softwares treat the line. So when they say finish line, it's 200 meters either side of the point, perpendicular to the direction from the last turn point. But on the back side, it's a cylinder, semicircle. I'll describe on the board how it is, and you need to pay attention how you finish, particularly when you are not coming exactly in the line from the last waypoint. You're coming around for sake of some lift or something. You're coming around.
Yeah.
So that's something you need to pay attention to. So just a small thing, that when you have a finish that is a line, you have to be a little careful that most of the software, it keeps changing because the software upgrade all the time. If you had this is the last turn point, and this is goal line. So goal line is 200 meter radius. It's each side of the goal point, 200 meters, right? But the software treats it as a semicircle of same radius.
Okay.
So let's say you're coming from here, but the best line was not straight, but somewhere, let's say here, and then here, and the wind kind of pushed you, the wind is strong, and wind pushed you to come here.
Yeah.
Okay. Now be careful that if you just end up here, you're still not, like, if it's inside the 200 meter, but still you're in the outside, or maybe here or here, you're not inside the goal.
Yeah.
You need to go in, or best sail is somehow try to do this or to fly like this.
Okay.
Okay, get inside cross the goal line physically if possible, this line. And if you're trusting this cylinder, make sure that you're inside the cylinder, because this part here is not inside, which you might feel like you were inside, but you're not inside, because it seems like 200 meters.
Yeah.
Right, but this part is not inside.
Okay. Okay, it's like a pie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gurpreet.
My pleasure.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for both of you sharing such valuable information. I am sure for our pilots in the next competition, this will help in a lot of ways. Thank you again.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay, and thank you, Gurpreet.